Imagine building an outboard engine that needs no oil changes, no belts, no throttle linkage adjustments. 3 full years of scheduled maintenance skipped entirely. Cleaner emissions than most 4-strokes, better power to weight than anything Mercury or Yamaha was selling at the money. And imagine the boating industry mostly refusing to buy it. Sounds unbelievable, right? So today, we are going to talk about the engine that genuinely deserved better than the reception it actually got. The story of the E-TEC genuinely does not make sense without first talking about what came before it. In the mid-1990s, the US Environmental Protection Agency introduced strict new emissions rules for outboard motors. Traditional carburetor 2-strokes were suddenly illegal to sell as new. Every American outboard manufacturer needed a solution, fast. Outboard Marine Corporation, the parent company of Evinrude and Johnson, chose to partner with a German engineering firm called Ficht GmbH. Ficht had developed a direct fuel injection system that promised the fuel efficiency of a 4-stroke with the lightweight of a 2-stroke. On paper, brilliant. In practice, an absolute disaster. The 1997 model year Ficht outboards, released as both Johnson and Evinrude 150 horsepower units, arrived with what one owner later described as more downtime than runtime. Powerheads seized, injectors clogged, fuel leaked. Warranty claims flooded the dealer network. The engine that was supposed to save OMC started actively destroying it instead. So Ficht arrived in 1997 and immediately started failing. So what happened next that made the real disaster even worse? The situation went from bad to genuinely dangerous with the 1999 and 2000 model year Ficht 225 horsepower outboards. Fuel injector retainer bolts on those specific engines were undersized. Under real-world use, they failed. Fuel started spraying out onto hot engine components. The result was fires, explosions, owners genuinely hurt. Between July 1999 and December 2000, OMC received what the US Coast Guard would later call an unacceptably high number of reports of fires and explosions. On April 5, 2001, the Coast Guard issued a formal safety advisory in the Federal Register, warning of serious danger of fire or explosion with continued use of uncorrected Fichts. By that point, OMC had already collapsed. The company filed for federal bankruptcy protection in December 2000. A once dominant American outboard manufacturer, founded in 1907, was completely finished. The Ficht disaster had not just damaged Evinrude's reputation, it had genuinely killed the parent company. And with it went decades of dealer trust, dealer relationships, and consumer confidence that had taken generations to build. Bankruptcy, Coast Guard advisory, exploding engines. So who was willing to buy the wreckage? A Canadian company called Bombardier Recreational Products. Bombardier already owned Ski-Doo snowmobiles and Sea-Doo personal watercraft. In February 2001, they won the federal bankruptcy auction for the Evinrude and Johnson trademarks, factories, and assets. Then it did something legally unnecessary but reputationally essential. It absorbed the full cost of the 99 and 2000 Ficht recall. Bombardier had no legal obligation to honor any OMC warranty or recall. It did so anyway, because rebuilding the brand from the wreckage of the Ficht disaster meant genuinely acting like the adults in the room. On September 27, 2001, the first Bombardier-built Evinrude came off the assembly line at the Sturtevant, Wisconsin factory. The 2001 Fichts, now called Ficht Ram, had completely redesigned injector retainers and larger bolts. There was no repeat of the 99 to 2000 failure pattern, but the damage to the Evinrude reputation had already been done. Many boat dealers had switched to Mercury, Yamaha, or Honda during the OMC collapse and were not coming back. Bombardier needed something better than a slightly fixed Ficht, something genuinely new, which is where the E-TEC story actually begins. So Bombardier bought the wreckage and honored the recalls. Now what were they going to build to replace the disaster? In February 2003, Bombardier previewed the technology at the Miami International Boat Show. Then, in February 2004, at the same show, they fully launched the Evinrude E-TEC, 2-cylinder inline 40, 50 and 60 horsepower engines, 3-cylinder inline 75 and 90 horsepower engines, all two-stroke, all direct injection, all clean sheet designs, not a warmed-over Ficht with a new sticker. The technical innovation was genuinely impressive. E-TEC injectors ran on their own dedicated 55-volt electrical circuit, separate from the 12-volt battery circuit that ran everything else. Fuel pressure ramped from about 30 pounds per square inch at the pump to as high as 600 pounds per square inch at the injector nozzle. That injector was not a simple open-close valve. It was effectively a tiny internal pump inside every cylinder, delivering an atomized charge of fuel so precisely timed that combustion approached genuine four-stroke cleanliness. Except the underlying engine was still a two-stroke, which meant it stayed light, torquey, simple, and full of hole shot the way boaters had loved for 100 years. In May 2004, they unveiled the first big block V6 E-TEC at the Ralph Evinrude Test Center in Stuart, Florida. And in April 2005, the US Environmental Protection Agency awarded Evinrude E-TEC the Clean Air Excellence Award, first outboard engine technology in history to win it. Not a four-stroke, a two-stroke. Carbon monoxide emissions from the E-TEC were 30 to 50% lower at cruise. At idle, they were lower by a factor of 50 to 100 times. Particulate matter was 30 to 40% lower on a weight basis. On paper, this was, genuinely, the cleanest outboard money could buy. Cleaner than a four-stroke, lighter than a four-stroke. So why did most of the industry keep moving toward four-strokes anyway? Here is where the E-TEC story stops being about engineering and starts being about human memory. A large portion of the American boating industry had been genuinely burned by the Ficht disaster. Dealers had shouldered warranty claims. Owners had watched engines seize on the water. Marine mechanics had spent late 90s evenings tearing down brand new powerheads. Insurance companies had paid out on Coast Guard flagged fire claims. That kind of collective experience does not evaporate because a Canadian company arrives with a press release and a new acronym. So, when the E-TEC arrived in 2004 with genuinely superior direct injection, a completely redesigned injector, a new 55-volt electrical circuit, cleaner emissions, and better fuel efficiency, the industry response was mostly polite skepticism. Yamaha had gone all in on four-strokes and was winning. Mercury Verado was the new flagship, and it was a four-stroke. Honda had never made a two-stroke outboard in the modern era. Every major rival was actively selling four-strokes as the future, and they were framing two-strokes, quietly but consistently, as the past. Never mind that the E-TEC was demonstrably cleaner than most of their four-stroke offerings. Never mind that the E-TEC weighed less. Never mind that E-TEC owners genuinely loved their engines. The industry narrative had already been decided. There is a genuinely fascinating comment buried in an old yachting trade magazine, quoted in the Wikipedia entry for Evinrude, that describes the situation exactly. The E-TEC's failure to dominate the market happened in large part due to a technological choice not understood by boaters. That is genuinely the whole story. Better engine, wrong perception, wrong moment. Every dealer conversation about a new E-TEC eventually ended up with a customer asking whether this was going to be another Ficht situation. The engineering answer was no, but the emotional answer, the answer that actually sold or lost outboard motors, was that nobody could really say for certain. But E-TEC owners kept coming back. Why? Because it did things four-strokes genuinely could not match. The E-TEC came with a 3-year non-declining warranty. 3 years of no scheduled maintenance, 300 hours of operation with nothing to do except run the engine, put fuel in, and top up the oil tank. No oil changes, no spark plug swaps, no belt replacements, no throttle linkage adjustments, no valve clearance checks. An E-TEC owner was saving several $100s a year on maintenance alone. The performance was the other half of the story. E-TECs had the classic two-stroke whole shot, throttle open at rest, and the boat was on plane in seconds. Torque was immediate, weight was low. The 250 horsepower E-TEC weighed around 520 pounds, about 236 kilograms. Compare that to a 4-stroke Yamaha F250 at around £550, or the Mercury Verado at over £600. About 27 kilograms saved on the transom. Owners in the American South, particularly base tournament anglers and coastal saltwater fishermen, became genuinely devoted to E-TECs. The engines started reliably, ran clean, produced the top-end speed those buyers wanted, and required almost no maintenance during the fishing season. For the owner-pilot who fished hard on weekends and did not want to spend evenings under a cowling, the E-TEC was genuinely the correct choice. Loyal owner communities formed on internet forums and Facebook groups. Some still exist today, and they defended the E-TEC against 4-stroke marketing with genuine passion. The problem was that these communities were, in absolute numbers, smaller than the 4-stroke buying public. Loud voices, not enough voices. The commercial charter world also had its E-TEC loyalists. Small boat charter operations in the Florida Keys and the North Carolina Outer Banks kept E-TECs on the transom year after year. Because when you are running 8 hours a day, 6 days a week, the total maintenance saving compared to a 4-stroke was genuinely material. Bass tournament anglers held on to them for the same reason. Fewer scheduled service visits meant more actual fishing days. That maths added up to serious money over a decade of ownership. So E-TEC owners genuinely loved their engines. So Bombardier doubled down. What did they build next? The second generation E-TEC, called G2 for Generation 2, launched to dealers at a Milwaukee event in June 2014. 6 all-new 3.4-litre V6 2-stroke models ranging from 200 to 300 horsepower, later expanded downward to include a smaller 2.7-litre V6 covering 150 to 200 horsepower. The G2 was genuinely radical. Interchangeable composite side panels replaced the traditional single-piece bucket cowl. Owners could specify the outboard in 5 base colors plus 14 accent stripe colors. Buyers could genuinely color match the outboard to their boat and their tow vehicle. No other outboard on the market offered this. Under the panels sat a new midsection with fully integrated hydraulic steering. The steering ram and tiller arm that had been visible on outboards for generations were completely gone. Trim was also hydraulic. Shift was digital. A small solenoid in the lower gear case replaced the old mechanical shift cable entirely. Performance claims were substantial. Bombardier reported 20% more torque, 15% better fuel economy, and 75% lower emissions compared to the best outboards in the category. Weight for the 250 horsepower G2 came in at 570 pounds, about 259 kilograms. On paper, again, the ultimate outboard. Genuine engineering ambition executed cleanly. But the market response was even more polarizing than the original E-TEC had been. Some boaters loved the design so completely, they still consider it the most beautiful outboard ever built. Others thought the vertical exoskeleton styling looked like a household appliance. There was almost no middle ground. Ownership costs on the G2 also came in higher than the original E-TEC. Integrated hydraulic steering added installation complexity for boat builders and rigging cost for retrofits. Independent mechanics could not diagnose the G2 without dealer-only proprietary Bombardier software. Every service visit had to go through an Evinrude certified technician. That was not a problem in Florida. It was a real problem in Michigan or Oregon or Maine, where the nearest certified technician might be a 2-hour drive away. So, the G2 launched in 2014 and immediately divided the boating world. So what actually killed it? 3 genuine problems. The first was the horsepower gap. Buyers wanting 350 horsepower or more for offshore boats found Evinrude simply did not compete. Mercury offered the Verado 400. Yamaha offered the F425 XTO. Evinrude topped out at 300 horsepower. That entire high-dollar offshore segment went to competitors, and it was the fastest-growing segment in the industry. The second problem was internal product cannibalization. When the G2 arrived in 2014, Bombardier did not retire the original E-TEC. The two ranges sat side by side in dealer showrooms. Buyers looked at the older, proven, less expensive E-TEC and often chose that over the flagship G2. Dealers were unclear which range to push. Sales spread thin across two lines instead of concentrating on one. The third problem was dealer network shrinkage. Bombardier had over 1,000 Evinrude dealers globally at peak, but it never achieved the density of Mercury or Yamaha. Coastal saltwater areas particularly suffered. Boat buyers looked at long distances to the nearest certified Evinrude technician and often chose the local Yamaha or Mercury dealer instead. Diagnostic tools for the G2 in particular were dealer-only proprietary equipment. Independent mechanics could not properly troubleshoot the engine without factory kit. That killed used market confidence over time. Horsepower gap, cannibalization, dealer coverage. So what actually pulled the plug on Evinrude? The COVID-19 pandemic. On May the 27th, 2020, Bombardier announced the immediate discontinuation of both the E-TEC and E-TEC G2 outboard lines. First quarter 2020 had seen a 26% revenue decline and a 40% plus drop in outboard sales for Bombardier's marine division. According to Boat Test financial analysis, supply chains were broken, consumer confidence was collapsing, boat shows were cancelled, dealer traffic disappeared. Bombardier simultaneously announced an agreement with Mercury Marine to supply outboard engines for its owned boat brands. 650 employees globally were affected by the closure, about 400 at the Sturtevant, Wisconsin factory alone. That plant was repurposed for other Bombardier projects. Manufacturer-limited warranties and service parts availability were promised for the foreseeable future. And, remarkably, Bombardier has largely kept that promise. Parts for standard E-TECs remain available through the dealer network in 2026. G2-specific electronic components have become harder to source, particularly since the original supplier relationships have shifted since 2020. The Evinrude name, founded by Norwegian immigrant Ole Evinrude in 1907, one of the oldest and most historically important names in American outboard motor history, was quietly retired after 113 years of continuous operation. A century of engineering history ended by a pandemic quarter. So, what is the actual verdict? The Evinrude E-TEC was genuinely one of the most technically impressive outboard motors ever built. Cleaner than a four-stroke, lighter, faster off the throttle, maintenance-free for 300 hours, award-winning, loved by devoted owners, and yet the American boating industry never fully trusted it after Ficht. That is genuinely the whole story. Should you buy a used E-TEC in 2026? Genuinely yes, with caveats. A well-documented G2 with under 300 hours and clean service records is a legitimately excellent choice, especially with a former Evinrude certified technician within driving distance. The engine is proven. Performance is real. Used market value is strong because inflation on new four-strokes has priced many buyers out of the mainstream. If you have mechanical aptitude or fish fresh water with a trusted regional Evinrude mechanic, the E-TEC remains one of the smartest older outboard buys available. The lesson for anyone paying attention is genuinely uncomfortable. Better engineering does not always win. Better marketing sometimes does. Ficht poisoned the well for Bombardier so completely that even a genuinely excellent replacement engine, designed and built by a different company, could not fully recover the American boater's trust. Reputational damage is a real and lasting engineering constraint, something Evinrude learned the hard way, twice. So, if you enjoyed this one, go watch our deep dive on the Evinrude and Johnson boat engines that faded into us history and tell us, what outboard would you actually run today? Drop it in the comments and thanks for hanging out.